these have a very important purpose. So as we can see, even just if we just focus in on E augmented 7, we can see that we have a G sharp diminished chord. Now if we have a slightly closer look at that, and I've just rubbed it off, which is a lot of use, but if we have a slightly closer look at this, we note that we've got a minor third here, minor third here, minor third here, and if we were going to go up to the G sharp again, which I've got just here, that would also be a minor third. So a stack of 3 minor thirds. A minor third is 3 semitones apart, G sharp to B, G sharp A sharp B. So it's 3 semitones away. So if each of these is 3 semitones, and there are 4 of them, it stands to reason that this equally divides our whole octave. So if I go to the trouble of doing this, just trying to do all the chromatic notes reasonably diatomically. So that should be 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and of course the 12th would be, oh no, we will put the 12th as well. It's 12. Okay, so if we go G sharp to B, it's a different colour. Here's our first interval, 3 semitones, 1, 2, 3, and then B to D, which is also 1, 2, 3 semitones, D to F, which is also 3, so all minor thirds, or 3 semitones, and then F back up to the G sharp again, which would be bringing us right around. So all minor thirds, 3 semitones, and also a tone and a half. So it divides the whole chromatic scale up equally into 4 chunks of 3. That's really, really important. We will see it more later on, but when we have symmetry, what do we tend to get? When we have symmetry in things, what do we tend to, what else tends to happen? Here is something with symmetry. Pretend that's a cube. It has, how many axes of symmetry does that have, by the way?
4.
1, 2, 3, 4, which means if I laid a mirror along any of those axes, I would see exactly the same thing on the other side, right? Actually the same as this. This has four axes of symmetry. So I can pick this up and plonk it down 4 times as it goes around before it gets back to where it was originally. Just imagine doing that, right? Just taking it and plonking it around. Well, this is exactly the same. And because of that symmetry, not only is this a G sharp diminished chord, but it's also a B diminished chord and a D diminished chord and an F diminished chord, because they're all at just exactly the same spaces, right? We just take the note off the bottom, put it on the top, and it will become exactly the same chord. That's not the case if we do that with something like C7. If we take C7, C, E, G, and B flat, and take the bottom note, put it on the top, I mean, it continues to be C7, but it's an E chord now. It's a different arrangement of notes. We've got some minor thirds, and we've got a major second. So, but this always remains to be minor thirds all the way through, and that's because of the symmetry of it. Now, what we're going to consider later on is it not only just these jumps, but also the notes in between and what scales they become. What else can you see in this arrangement of notes? There's 4 minor thirds. What else is there? Something we've already discussed.
2 tritones.
Right, awesome. 2 tritones. So we already know that the tritone also chops the chromatic scale in half. And here's another chop based on the minor third. So there is a tritone between G sharp and and D, and here's another one between B and F. So we've also got two tritones in there as well. Or another way to look at it is a tritone is 2 minor thirds, correct? So this whole relationship and the symmetry of it is something which we're really going to focus on this year. It's peculiar to only a few harmonic things. Diminished is one of them. What's another thing that symmetry is important to in scales? Certainly not major scales, because they go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. There's no regular, repeatable pattern there. This goes minor third, minor third, minor third, minor third. What else, apart from diminished chords, has symmetry in it?
The augmented, major augmented.
Yeah, yes, well, augmented's right, and what scale is that?
Whole tone.
Whole tone. So whole tone, and we won't go too deep into this just now, but if we take whole tone, instead of going semitones, we're going to go whole tones. So there we've got, these are all, of course, tone jumps. And that means that the C whole tone scale is exactly the same scale as D whole tone and E whole tone and F sharp. Or another way to think of it is, I think this is what you were hinting to here, and it is C augmented triad, which would be 1, 3, sharp 5, and 8 is exactly the same as E augmented triad. So those are the same things. So we've gone from semitones to tones. Minor thirds we kind of covered already, and the major thirds we can see in here. So the whole tone has some of the similar properties as well, because it's also symmetrical. That means that the leaps and the steps are exactly the same in each for each movement. So when we take G sharp diminished, obviously the other four diminished chords just lay on top of them. They're really just the same chord with the bottom removed and placed on the top. So, I guess the point is, and I alluded to this last week, is that in that E diminished, the inside of it is G sharp, B, D, and F diminished. And then we go to the other two minor secondary dominants, A augmented 7 flat 9, giving us C sharp, E, G, and B flat diminished, and B augmented 7 giving us D sharp, F sharp, A, and C diminished. We add up those three lots of 4, and they're all different, and there are our 12 diminished chords that happen. So, this gets us to one of our first kind of absolute things that happen in theory, because diminished chords, even though they're not so popular these days, they formed a huge amount of, particularly early jazz. The diminished chord appeared everywhere, and I mean there's a number of reasons why that is. I believe one of the reasons is, particularly in early jazz, it was very guitar or banjo oriented, and the bass instruments weren't so clearly heard, so there was just a whole lot of diminished chords flying around. Has anybody played old 20s style jazz? Any guitarists? Or you guys, any of you played a little bit?
Did a 1920s gig the other day. It's very,
You know lots of diminished chords?
yeah.
Right. So that often, well, invariably what they're doing is they're alluding to some diminished chord. Which one? Well, that's the thing you've got to kind of figure out. It's going to be one of them, because they can be in any of these inversions, and it can get quite complex. So I'm going to set you a wee task so you can figure this out, and I will tell you, just need a bit of paper, something to write down on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a key and a diminished chord, and I want you to, so we'll make this one easy first, and this is the diminished chord, and I want you to tell me where that is going to resolve to. So here's the key, it's C, and we've got F diminished. Now this is an easy one because we can see all the solutions up here. Now, I've got to figure out which chord that F diminished is in, because it could be any of these three. And straight away I can see it's here, right? So if it's part of that diminished, of that minor secondary dominant in the key of C, the resolution will be what? Where does E7 go?
A minor.
Okay, so the answer to that is A minor. So really F diminished is just the middle of E augmented 7 flat 9 in a different guise. It doesn't have its root, it doesn't have the 13th on the top, but that's essentially what it's doing. See my process? Okay, so I'm going to write down a few keys and see how you get on. So you're trying to work out where it's going. So my process is the key of E. What are the three minor secondary dominants? Where do the minor secondary dominants sit? What chords? 3, 7, 6, 7, and 7, 7. Okay? And what are the diminished chords associated with each of those? Don't know why I gave you E to start with, it's a horrible key. But what's the major third of G sharp? G sharp.
B sharp.
B sharp. So we'll go C diminished, E flat diminished, G flat diminished, and A diminished, right? C sharp the third.
F.
F. So F diminished, A flat diminished, B diminished, and D diminished. In D sharp the third is G. B flat, D flat, and E. So which one are we doing? We're doing F diminished. So here it is here. So that's 6, 7. So 6, 7 resolves to 2, and what's 2 in E? F sharp minor. Get it? So I'm working out in these keys what the minor secondary dominants are, and therefore what the diminished chords are. And once I've worked out which minor secondary dominants that's a diminished chord of, I can work out where it's going. Does it make sense? Yes? Sorry to give you E to start off with. No. But I mean, just think inharmonically, what is the third? You don't say E sharp or B sharp, just figure them out. This will be easier or harder for all of you, depending on whether you've thought about it this way before or not. So Alex,
Yeah.
tell me about this first one. Oh, I've got that one, so tell us about this E flat.
The three minor secondary dominants we're thinking about G, C, and D.
Uh-huh.
And then, the way I thought about it, I thought what the diminished chords are going to be. So they're going to be B, diminished E, and F sharp. As in for each of the individual ones.
Yeah, so that's quite cool. So you're thinking already, like just going straight to the third.
Yeah.
And this is the slightly quicker way, isn't it, to
Yeah.
think without doing them all.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident just kind of thinking from there.
Yeah.
And then,
So- So, yeah, you can think pretty quickly, like G, what's 3, 5, 3, 5, 7 flat 9, right? So B, D, F, A flat. So you can get pretty quick at them. C, E, G, B flat, D flat, and D, F sharp, A, C, E flat. So you can get to them pretty quickly. Probably Alex, because he's quite an advanced improviser these days. These things come up quite a lot, right? So you practice diminished,
Yep.
and you have a sense of where they are on a diminished chord. So this is sort of intrinsic to some forms of improvisation, is that right?
Yep.
So, I've rubbed it off now, but, so this was G7, and so that would be resolving to C minor, correct? Okay, Cassie, you're looking a little bit
I
good.
thought I messed up, but I was indeed correct on that one. So
You're cool?
I was,
You're not too sure how you got it done.
yeah.
Okay. Cool though, well, do you want to do the next one for us? So we're in F.
No, I'm not sure. I don't think I got it.
Okay, so help me through it. So what are the three minor secondary dominants in F? They're on 3, 6, and 7. So what's
So A7,
correct? And what's 6?
D,
7?
flat
Yep.
9,
Flat 9, these are all flat 9, sorry, yep.
E,
And E. Cool. And then can you think in your head what 3, 5, 7 and flat 9 of A is?
C sharp and
Yep.
E,
Yep.
G,
I'm sorry, G.
and B flat.
Is that any good? Bingo, we got one. Yeah. So if that's the minor secondary dominant, which is 3, 7, that would resolve naturally to
D minus.
6, yeah, which is D minor. Cool. So you can see what I mean for all of us, we're slightly more used to this maths, going through it. Who finds that quite easy? This isn't about proving points, but somebody find it a bit easier? Okay, that's because it's come into your practice as improvisers. And, and so it's harder, and it's, hard for me when I've been doing it for a while, so it's just something you can practice, something you can think about what they are. Do you want to have a go?
Yeah, sure.
Tom?
So A flat, the minor secondary dominants is C7, flat 9, F7, and A7.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so the G diminished is in the C7, but it's also in the A7. That's what I was gonna ask about.
Shouldn't be. So have we got these right? So this is 3 in D, this is 6, 7, and 7 is G7. So that's where we went wrong. So if it isn't both, you got the wrong minor secondary
Oh,
dominant.
did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
So,
so C7 resolves to F, so F minor would be the answer.
So it's in this one, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the fifth.
5.
Yeah. So you reasonably quickly go, what is this, the 5th, third, flat 7 or flat 9th of? It's none of it. It's the 7th of this, it's the root of that. You can almost, negate 2 of them by saying it isn't, right?
Yeah.
So you just work out which of those is 3, 5, 7, flat 9. Cool, so, well, the answer is F minor, okay? Yeah, what else going to say about that. It's a good thing to go through. Yes, sir.
What's the best way to think about it? Because I didn't even work out the secondary dominance. I just, if like for the second one, I would have hide you up from sight, like the first, like, bit of, it could happen to you. And then the next one I would have been, oh, that's a walk down to C. That's just the same as a 3 secondary dominant to C. And like, see them as just diminished chords, but like, can you skip the the
Sure. I mean,
secondary
that's
dominant?
why is that? Why do you see those?
Oh, it's just, because from a chordal player,
You just used to saying them,
C,
Yeah.
and then C sharp diminished going to 6.
Yes. and it isn't intrinsically a guitar-y thing,
Yeah.
you know. And it's even more so than piano, I think, for me being a piano player. I'm kind of used to some of them, but I think it's just you're used to them. You know, this is all just matter of conditioning, isn't it? So you kind of get used to it. So good, but just be a little bit careful, because this isn't the whole story. So what you're going to, and I have a bit of a tease with my classes, and I say I want you to laminate this and put it up somewhere really important. But well, you're going to tell me what I'm going to put in this important piece of paper, and it's going to start off like this. Diminished chords come from what? Where do they come from? Where we just discussed them coming from?
7 flat 9 chords.
They come from the middle, that is, take off the bottom note and the top note, they come from the middle of minor secondary dominant chords. Diminished chords come from the middle of minor secondary dominant chords. That is, they're the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and flat and 9th. And how do they resolve? Well, they resolve as the apparent minor secondary dominant chord was, because they're just part of it. They're an essential part of it. You know, they're the meat of it. The root doesn't matter too much. You know, we drop the root and the 5th on things. Well, the 3, 5, 7 flat 9, they're really important notes. So they resolve in the same way that the apparent chord would have. What we know from this is they're only going to have one parent chord. They can't be in 2, because these 12 are all different, aren't they? So they resolve, I'm trying to put a nice way, in the same way as their parent dominant chord. They resolve in the same way as their parent dominant chord. So minor secondary dominant chords come from the middle of minor secondary dominants, and they resolve in the same way that those minor secondary dominant chords that they come from do. That's a really important theoretical fact. There's a little bit of a but, which I'm going to get into, but generally that's the case. That's where they come from. So you're flying along music, you suddenly come across a diminished chord. Have a look at it, work out which minor secondary dominant chord is attached to. There's a little bit of addition to this. Sometimes they can be one of the primary dominants. Sometimes we turn 1, 7 and 5, 7 into flat 9 chords. So they can sometimes be part of that. But this is the building blocks, and this is the starting point. So that is true, with just one little wee exception, and it's the bit that we get to at the end, which is the flat 3 diminished descending. Now that's its own little thing, and we will get to that at the end of this story. Maybe today we'll see how we get on. So there is a little exception. So we just need to learn that exception, but in general harmonic use, that's the case. Okay, so we've got a really nice kind of story building. We've got our full potential chords, we've got our secondary dominants, which give us greater need to progress, and in 3 of those secondary dominants, we've got these diminished chords. They get used variously in different styles of music. We alluded to 20s jazz, Dixie, and it was full of just diminished chords racing all over the place. the bass instrument didn't seem to be so important, although they did have E-flat basses and tubas and things like that. A lot of that music doesn't rely too much on the bass. Really, the bass became important when it became amplified, particularly in jazz. And then we moved from the diminished chord being so important, more to the dominant chord being more important, as we can hear the bass. But the bass was fairly inaudible, particularly the string bass, up to electrification. So diminished chord, you know, a guitarist can invert a diminished chord any number of times you like, because of course it's the same fingering as you go up the neck. All that stuff that we used to hearing in Dixie, you know, all that sort of thing. It's easy to do. And it's the essence of a dominant chord, so you get the resolution. But as we evolve through the 30s and 40s and 50s, and the bass becomes more apparent and evident in music, then we start to see the chord being more represented by the root of the dominant. So it's quite a big change. Mark Levine talks a bit about that if you read Mark Levine's theory book and go into it. So that's a slightly interesting fact. Okay, so fairly happy to move on from diminished for now. All good? Tritone substitution. So we've talked a little bit about tritone substitutions. And what do we know so far about that term? What have we discussed so far about this term tritone substitution? What have we discussed about the terminology?
Substituting it for a dominant chord, tritone away.
Yeah, cool. So that's one aspect of it. When we do it, we're substituting with a dominant chord that's a tritone away. And what is another aspect of tritone that refers to?
The two chords that share the same tritone are the ones which substitute for each other.
Right. So not only does the root move a tritone away when we do a tritone substitution, but also the tritone that's sitting in the chord swaps around. The third becomes the seventh, and the seventh becomes the third. So it's a substitution based on swapping those thirds and sevens around. Why can we swap those around? Because they bisect the scale, the chromatic scale. They chop it in half. So it's another result of symmetry. So we're kind of all used to the idea of tritone substitution, but let's look at it in a little bit of depth. So let's take G7, which is our primary dominant, I guess we'd call it. It's our main dominant in this key. Here it is, here. There's the scale of it. G7, G mixolydian. So, now you're looking at that and going, well, that's G7. If I try to substitute, it's going to be D flat 7. And then that D flat 7 is going to resolve to the same place that G7 did run. So G7 is always coming towards C major 7. This is our main 5-to-1 movement. And if we did tritone it, we would end up with that, and then that moves down a semitone. Of course, these two share the same tritone. What's the tritone in G7? What's the third?
D.
And what's the seventh? F. So D and F. And what's the third in D flat 7? F. And the seventh is C flat or B. So we can see that they share the same tritone. So that's what we know. So what is really going on? Well, let's just go through a little bit of a process of how we tritone substitute. So the first thing we do, we're going to call this tritone substituting. First thing we're going to do is check that this is a real dominant chord. What the hell do I mean by that? How many dominant chords do I have so far, including my secondary dominants? 6? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7, right? Not 4. Those are all real dominants. Why are they all real dominants?
So they resolve to something in the key.
And they resolve down a fifth. Is this a real dominant? It's a type of dominant, isn't it? Is it a true dominant? No, because it's going to resolve down to C, a semitone. This is not a true dominant. Real dominants are ones that fall a perfect fifth. We've looked at that. That's the resolution of a dominant chord. Why is it important that I weed that out and say that's not a real dominant?
So that's maybe already a tritone.
It's already a tritone. I can't tritone it again. If I alter this, I get on. Well, we'll go through the process we're going to go through. But once we've done it, you can't do it again. I mean, you could say, look at that and say, well, we'd come back to G again. But you need to be certain that the chord that we're dealing with is one that is already descending a fifth. So, and this will become a little bit more evident as we go through. So check its real dominant. Yes, it is. It's chord 5 in the key of C. Clear up here. Okay, so the second thing I'm going to do, anybody want to pitch in? What do you think the second thing is I'm going to do? I've got G mixed Lydian, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to this in terms of to tritone substitute? Have it stab? You've got the right mouth shape, so what are you thinking of saying? I'm going to alter it. Now, that's probably a term which has been bandied around to you ever since you started studying jazz. What the hell does altering mean? What does it mean? Anybody want to have a go at what it means?
Sharp 9, flat 9, flat 5, sharp 5.
Alter the fifth and the ninth. An altered fifth and an altered ninth is what altered is. Okay? So let's make that and write that down if you don't know that. Altered fifth and altered ninth. So what does altering mean? Well, it literally means we displace each of them sideways by a semitone. Okay, so let's do that to the fifth. Now we've got a D here, this is the fifth, and the ninth here. So the fifth is going to go to D sharp or E flat. Now that's going to, for various reasons, take over that E there. So I'm just going to change that to an E flat, and I'm going to turn this into a C sharp. So you could look at it, we've essentially lost a note there, right? Before we had, well, between the third and here, we had two semitones and a tone. Now we've got 3 tones. So we've taken 2 of those semitone movements and turned it into 1 tone. So the fifth has gone up to the flat 13, this is the 7th, and this has come down to the sharp and 11th. The third remains the same, and the 7th remains the same. They are our tritones. Yes?
So this is the scale that we use with the D flat 7 now?
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Yep, be patient.
So,
And if I'm going to alter the ninth, I've got a ninth here. We just push it sideways each way, right? So what are those 2 notes going to become? A flat and A sharp, right? Flat 9 and sharp 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes still. And we have what scale? G altered. We've altered the ninths and the fifths. Well, the ninth and the fifth. Now, I know you all know that altered's just the melodic minor 7th mode, but that's what's going on. We've got the root, the third, and the 7th. The ninth's gone whoop, and the fifth has also gone whoop. And pushing the fifth, that 2 sideways, we've now got only 2 notes between the third and the 7th, and we've now got 2 notes between the root and the third. So what does that sound like? Has become Okay, so, interesting, I could ask you why, but I think we need to do something else before we ask why. Does anybody want to proffer why we've done this? What is the point in altering notes in a dominant chord? Why do we alter a dominant chord? Why do we
Extra
say the
tension.
mix lydic? Tension?
Yeah, if it's resolving to a minor, but in this case it's not, so that's why I'm wondering.
So why has it got more tension? You're right.
Well, I mean, a flat 9, like we were talking about the other day, is full of tension. Notes that are kind of a semitone apart are always going to be full of tension.
So you said two things there. Well, you said notes that are semitone apart are going to have more tension. What's another way of putting that? Because we're going from a dominant chord to a tonic chord. What does torment? And you're absolutely right.
They want to resolve down.
They have a greater need to resolve, right? And what was the first thing you said? Can you remember?
The flat 9
Okay.
is also a pretty tense.
So you're absolutely right, Tom. So this here, this A flat, resolving to the fifth of C, is such a greater need to resolve than just the A or something else that might have been the G7 or could have been the G. Of course, G to G is not very exciting, but the flat 9 to G, because it's the semitone down. What's the A sharp doing? It really wants to pull
To B.
up to the major seventh. I'll play these in a minute. What does this one want to do? Well, it's got two things. It can go up to the ninth, or it can come down to the tonic. And this really wants to resolve, when you talked about the minor, but in the major, it really wants to resolve to the
A
third,
major third, yeah.
which I put down there. So each of these altered notes has a hugely more important, here's the flat ninth, as opposed to was just that. But this is when you can't walk away from that, and you have to resolve it. The sharpened ninth, the augmented fourth, or the C sharp, and the flat 13. Where do you want to go, up or down? You hear down, and some of you are hearing up, right? Or so all those semitone movements, and I haven't said it yet, we learn that the semitone movement, whether it's on the bass or the melody, is the strongest movement that we can have in music. Basses are just melodies anyway. Basses are just melodies. The bass is running here, the melody's running here. This is what we call counterpoint. These are the two parts working with each other. So what's good for a melody is good for the bass. So yes, you're absolutely right. That is what we're setting up. And that's why we alter things. And we don't alter all of scale. Sometimes we have a flat 9, sharp 9, and we keep a major 13th. Sometimes we've got the sharp 11th and the flat 13th, and we keep this as a major 9th. We don't ever end up, no, rephrase that, we don't always end up having a whole altered scale, but we have certain altered notes in there that are a semitone away from where we're going to resolve them. You thought about it like that before? Yeah?
Yeah, not for a few months, but yeah.
Okay, so that's why we're altering it. By the by, I mean, it wasn't essential to now. So we're altering it, that's why we're altering it, for greater resolution, for greater need to resolve, let's say. What are we going to do now? So we've got G altered. What's the next part of this process? We place that scale over the tritone root. We're going to place that scale. We've made the changes. As it is, this, and if I play the whole thing, if I can. The whole thing's got a lot of tension in it. That's with all the notes in there. I'm going to place that over the tritone root, which we know is D flat. And let's see what that scale is now going to become. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend with a different colour, because I'm very flash with my colours. extend that back down. Here, so we've got E flat, and we've got C sharp. Sorry, we've got F, E flat, and we'll change that into D flat because that's where we're going. So I've just extended that scale back down to the D flat. So my question to myself is, now that was G altered, what sort of scale is the D flat? Yeah,
Lydian dominant,
cool. Well, why do you say that?
because you're playing G sharp or A flat melodic minor in the fourth mode of melodic minor.
Right.
D flat is Lydian dominant.
Yeah, so if you know your modes, you already know that G altered is the seventh mode of A flat melodic minor. So that's the seventh, and A flat would be the first mode. So here is ba 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 D ba 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 ba. There's the G root. So we know that modally, some of us. And we also know that the fourth mode, is it the fourth mode? Yeah, the fourth mode, which will be this one here, is going to be Lydian dominant. So those are our melodic minor modes. And they're important. I don't really do a lot of melodic minor modes this year. I sort of take it that you're kind of okay on them, but do have a refresh. So that's based on that. And modal knowledge is of course great, and that's going to be in your case particularly. But let's just check it out. If we're going to have to relitigate it and just check it out. So I'm in for a dominant scale with a sharpened 11th. That's what Lydian dominant is. So I've got 1, 2, 3, sharp 11, 5, and this is a tone. It doesn't look it at the moment because this is going to be B flat. 5, 6. And this is the flattened 7th, 8. So it's looking a bit dodgy at the moment because it's inharmonically a little like that. But what I need to do is just change some of those. That will be a B flat, and that will be a C flat. So, what can you tell me about these two chords? D flat Lydian dominant, does it have much tension in it?
Yes.
Not nearly as much as G altered. I'll play it to you. It's actually quite a pretty chord. Compared to this, we put it over the sharpened 11th has a little bit, it's slightly older, we could maybe say, but all the other notes are from the Mixolydian scale. It's quite a sweet sounding chord. One of the peculiarities of tritone substituting. On the original dominant, lots of tension, we were talking about it, wanting to move a semitone. Everything still wants to move a semitone, but now we've got it placed over the D flat, and it becomes a pretty chord. Prettier. Do you agree? It's a Debussy chord. And here it is over the original G root. And it's going to resolve down a semitone. So it's a really fascinating thing. We set it up to have all this tension with these 4 older notes. By the time we place it over its tritone root, it becomes a kind of a much more congenial sort of chord, and then that's all going to descend. Place over the tritone root, and then the fourth part is that chord resolves down a semitone to the original target, I suppose, where we were originally going to go, which is C. So 4 things. Is it a real dominant chord? If it is, alter it. Place that over the tritone root. It becomes a 13 sharp 11 chord, or Lydian dominant scale. And that chord and that scale all resolve down. Thoughts? You all know this. What's new in there for those of you who think you know it all, as I do? What do you think, Alex? Makes sense? Anything new in there?
I guess I never really thought, I never thought about relating altered to Lydian dominant, I just always thought it was kind of the same thing.
Interesting,
Yeah.
yeah, but you know you're melodic minor,
Yeah.
modes, right?
Yeah, of course, so I don't know.
Yeah, so you might
See
actually,
the tritone sub and it's just straight away the Lydian dominant, I'm not really considering that it's actually an altered.
right, and that's interesting for you playing it off a different note, isn't it? You said.
Question, because as a guitar player, when I'm playing my Lydian dominant, I usually play around like the 9, which is the flat 13, and the sharp 11, which is obviously the tonic. If you were to alter the Lydian dominant chord, so like one of my favorite things doing is like I'm playing solo guitar, or just with a melodic instrument, chuck a sharp 9, so it'd be D flat 7 sharp 9, which means the sharp 9 is the same as the 13 of the dominant.
Yeah.
Could you do that in like a band setting? Because I've never really done it on like solo guitar, because I don't really know. Like I've got a few of the notes in the right place, because your
Yeah.
sharp 9's obviously your 13,
Yeah.
and then
So if you put the sharp 9 in here, it becomes the E natural, right?
E, yeah.
So that's the preempting the third of the chord you're going to. So, yeah, in practice, we sometimes know saying, don't touch this, and once we get to this, but in practice, we do alter, in some cases, the result of tritone substitution. That's what you're suggesting.
What would you play with that? Like, because
Oh, it gets really complex. But what I can say, and I don't want to get too much into improvisational theory just now, but it wouldn't be fully altered. And I can,
so you just have certain notes.
you'll just have certain notes.
So
Because the older one has to resolve down a fifth, really. You can, when you do get the odd altered note in the 13 sharp 11, it's usually referring to a melodic note or something in there.
I see.
And I want you to have you think about that when you see it coming up. And when you're playing, just try that out. Can I really alter the flat 2 chord when it's resolving to 1? And what does it sound like? What I'm putting to you is that you can't. And but elements of each leak into each other. So it's more complex than just this. But as I said, we're building the blocks here. So it does happen, but you won't find here is the sound of it. So now if I'm going to fully alter that, I just haven't really got my brain on at the moment, but this doesn't sound like a resolution, right? The next chord doesn't come naturally.
I see.
Yeah, because that really wants to go
Yeah.
down a fifth. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
And I haven't got all the notes in there, my brain's a bit fuzzy. But you try that out. Go, well, why can't I do that? And then you'll prove to yourself that relationship. So it's very much about having the real dominant chord. We can make some changes, but then the result of tritone substitution will always fall in the same time. Okay, so I want you to remember those 4 steps. That's really, really important. And the altering thing. Any other questions?
Would an F7 in the key of C count as a real dominant? Or?
No, because it can't resolve down a fifth. So the F7 is the result of tritone substitution. So when we see F7, it is already the result of tritone in D7, which is an awesome reason to go. Is this a real dominant chord? Does it resolve down diatonically? No, it doesn't, unless I change key. So F7 comes up all the time, but it's always, there it is there, but that's B7 to E. Yeah, that comes up all the time. So, we can go back over that, but that's the essence of it. So, there are tritone substitutions, which are all the result of tritoning one of our 6 main secondary dominants and main dominant. So, F sharp is the result of tritoning C, A flat is the result of tritoning D or 2, B flat the result of tritoning E, etc., etc. So we now have how many dominant chords available to us in a key? We had 6 secondary dominants and a primary dominant, and we've got 6 tritone substitutes because we're able to tritone substitute all of them, right? How many got altogether? 12. 1 on every single root. We've got a dominant chord on every root, but beware, half of them are real dominant chords and half of them are tritone substitutes, or the result of tritone substitution. Correct? Have you thought about that before? And that comes into practice for you?
Yeah, yeah.
So of course harmony can be just a lot of these resolutions. All those semitone movements. There's a whole lot of, too much, but there's a whole lot of either tritone substitutions or dominant. But of course, the tritone is always going to descend to semitone. And you can hear in that, with that having merit I just played, is that at least it progresses on. And so therefore, of course, tritone substitution and secondary dominance gives us a huge harmonic palette, which really a lot of theoricians don't understand in music. They don't understand that we've got 3 major and 3 minor secondary dominants. That is peculiar to how we teach theory here, and that there are 2 different types. The American theoricians will tend to say B7 plus a 13th chord with a major ninth. That's just what it is. The nuance that they are different types of chords is important, and I want you to keep thinking about that. Any other questions? Cassidy, how's that for you? Is that process you've been through before? All good? You're looking very tired today, you
I
okay?
don't feel very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. We won't go for too much longer. Right, I'm just going to get a wee bit of water. Anna, how's that for you?
I think I'm following.
You think you're okay?
Yeah.
Of course, the video is there. Is there anything you think you want to ask me to sort of help, or you just need to let us settle in a little bit?
Okay, so last year Cam said that every chord can be prepped by its 5 chord.
Yep.
So like, was it F sharp 7? He counted as a secondary dominant, but would we count that as a tritone substitution?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think what he would be referring to. Anybody?
I think he means that F sharp 7 because it resolves to a diatonic chord.
Yeah.
It could be considered a secondary dominant because it's just a 5th.
Yeah, I think he's saying that the secondary dominants and their tritone substitutions are all secondary dominants. I guess that's a bit of a stretch, but possible.
I just think I remember him distinguishing the 2, being careful to say like there's secondary dominance and there's tritone subs and they're different, but I don't know.
I'll ask him about that, because I don't want to be feeding you contradictory information. This is all confusing enough without getting contradictory information. John, all good?
Yep.
Any thoughts? Anything that you think about a bit differently today?
Like Alex said, the steps 2 and 3 were sort of just more the same thing in my mind, but I guess that makes sense.
Is it right? I mean, can you believe it? You don't have to sign up to it. You don't have to die for it. But yeah, do you agree with it? The Tim of the Alford scale, is there anything new for you in there? All good? I haven't really asked you anything today yet. What do you think, Kieran?
I've never really thought about halving those dominants and having half be real and half be, tritone substitutions. Like,
Right.
I think it's pretty neat. Like,
Is that, yeah, cool.
Like from real dominants being 5 to 1, and I don't know, you just call it tritone substitution dominants being,
Yeah.
resolving down semitone. So I guess I never really differentiated them like that. So I like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty new.
Yeah, I would like to delve into that a bit deeper. My friend who established all of this theory, Bob Hines, who's now retired, but he used to say like the D flat, it's not really a dominant chord, it's a subdominant minor chord. Like, I must ask him what he thought, But yeah, it's that very thing you're talking about. It's only the true dominants that really fall a fifth. They just really, some other function of the chord which happen to have a flattened seventh and a third in them. You know, and that's another way you can sort of keep that thought going. Sure, it's got the tritone, but maybe the tritone's intact in the original dominant chord, and it's just that it's over a funny root, you know.
Yeah.
And so that might be another way to keep thinking of that, but that's great. Yeah, it is a really interesting one. And it allows you to access a whole lot of harmony in writing, which of course we're going to do. It allows you to think, but the differentiation is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see one will always descend a semitone, you know, and that's the one you came back to F7. Well, it has to be, doesn't it? So we've got 12, wherever they are. What's the A flat 7? Well, in the key of C, it's going to descend to the G, so it's really just a tritone of D. Yep. Cool. Okay. Good stuff. Let's move on. So, Lydian chords. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So, let me get to the end first. So remember, these are all things that are possibilities in a major key. And one of them is that we can have all these cool Lydian chords, and you can see those ones there on D flat, E flat, F sharp, A flat, and B. In the key of C, those are all the black notes. So they're all the non-diatonic notes. And they can all be a major chord, but there's one thing that differentiates them from an Ionian major chord in the key. Because if we have a major chord somewhere, and all the major notes are intact, it's an Ionian scale, that has to mean we've changed key. But the neat thing about these is we can use them in harmony as long as we include a sharpened 11th, F will make them a Lydian scale, they will always remain in this case, the parent key. Because what is that sharpened 11th? What's the sharpened 11th of D flat? G, diatonic note, right? What's the sharpened 11th of E flat? A, also a diatonic note. Sharpened 11th of G flat?
C.
C, which is also a diatonic note. Sharpened 11th of A flat is a D. Sharpened 11th of B flat is an E. In fact, the minor, the major pentatonic, tetrachordy sort of thing. Da-da-dee-da-dum. Those notes. So they've all got a note that is bringing us back. So if you allow me to play some harmony, and of course this happens a lot in music. Bill Evans was particularly fond of using, so there's my key of C, and here's some Lydian chords. Oops, that's not Lydian, that's... So they all have a sense of moving away, but because they're Lydian and they've always got that diatonic note tying them back to the original key, you can use them pretty well. What can you tell me about those roots in comparison to where we've just been? Can you tell me about those roots in comparison to where we've just been?
A lot of them gonna be tritone sub roots as well.
Yeah, in fact, all of them are,
Okay.
aren't they? They're all the same roots as the tritone sub roots. D flat, which is, well, we don't have D flat here because it's up in the original dominant, but E flat is here, G flat is here, or F sharp, A flat, and B flat. 5 of them, I've missed out F, which is Lydian anyway. I could have put that in there, but that's our diatonic 4 chord. So that's the one I'm just missing. So that's a little bit suspicious, isn't it? If there's a connection between the results of tritone substitution and Lydian chords.
But I guess a sharp 4 is a tritone anyway. so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well I've still got D flat 13 sharp 11 scale written up here. What's the one note difference between D flat 13 sharp 11 and D flat Lydian?
Flat 7 goes to major 7.
The flat 7 goes to major 7, and what is the flat 7 in here? This note, right? So if I made that a major 7, then what sort of G chord is it going to become? Okay. Now, okay, so I want this, or somewhere in here I want a C natural. Now, the issue is, well, okay, let's just do it. So we're going to move that up to a C, and now this here is no longer is D flat 13, D flat Lydian, D flat major 7 6 9 sharp 11. Can't bother writing all that. So what's that done to our original? We know this is G altered. What is G altered with a C instead of a B? In simple terms, what happens when you move the third up to a fourth in a dominant chord?
It becomes a G7 sus4.
Becomes G alt sus. Why not? Why can I not have G alt sus? So here is G alt. And here it is sus. The C sharp's a little bit of a clash down there. I can put it on the top. It's pretty full on. Get a sense of it. It's a bit full on, a bit turgid in there. Now, if I take that the G altered sus and put it over the D flat again, of course it's much the same as it was Lydian dominant. It's a nice clean chord. So I reckon that these Lydian chords are derived from the dominant chord that they would have been tritone substituted from, but they are susses. I reckon that's where they come from. And I haven't really found that anywhere in music theory, anywhere. But it makes perfect sense. Why not? Because they're all the same roots. Now, those of you playing chord instruments, I really encourage you to try as many altered notes that you can in the chord and throw the sus in there. It's a little bit of a challenge with the sharp 11, but you can still leave the sharp 11th out. Then that will become G alt sus. Ba, 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 ba. It's quite a difficult scale to sing because I got it totally wrong then. But and then over the root it becomes Lydian. So they're only one note difference. Yes.
So what's the thing that changes that makes the flat 2 major 7 juggling sound fine, but the G alt sus not sound fine? What's the main, like...
You don't think it sounds fine?
Is that the G alt or is it the...
That's the G alt sus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does it sound so crunchy? Is the...
I don't think it does sound much more crunchy. I think it actually sounds okay. But I want you to try some things out. I think it's actually alright. I mean, look, alt is crunchy enough as it is anyway. The thing that probably makes it quite crunchy is this here, this semitone. Because the only other semitone thing we have really is between the third and the sharp ninth, the first up an octave. You know, that's our main minor ninth crunch point. We've got another one, but in scale terms, it's cool. I mean, it's a cool scale to use.
Are these Lydian chords going to resolve to the same place as their parent?
They can do, and they can have the same properties that the results of tritone substitution had. But then also we can just kind of float them around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the D flat, major 7, like that's the subdominant one.
Yeah, and that sounds like it. Or the other ones. that's flat 3 or the E flat. And here's the A flat. To G. So they can do, they're probably not as strong because they're missing the tritone, you know, in there. So that's just my kind of theory, but I think that's where they come from. Now, and where this is going to go is when we do right harmony, we're going to put them in. I'm going to show you lots of examples where they're used, and they do get used a lot. Again, they harmonically allow us to feel like we're kind of changing key. 11's always used at the end of pieces for like a deceptive resolution. You go right through into diminished chords. Ding, ding, dun, 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 and he'd finish things, but he was a great fan of them. But for those of you who got it, and this is a slightly more advanced and slightly, don't know. I don't know if it's a thing or not, but for me it is. But that's why I reckon we've got them, because I get the idea of sus, old sus, and because they were on the same root, kind of think that's where they've come from. But that's a little bit of a push idea, push theory.
Is that scale not just Locrian?
It is, yeah, which it will be, won't it? If it's Lydian, it's going to be Locrian. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, of course it is. So Locrian, here we just got simply with an A flat major scale. Yeah, of course it was. Yeah. Okay, let's just take that idea for a minute and we'll keep going and just do a little bit more on the second to last idea, which is subdominant minor. And we've had lots of thoughts today, so let's just do this one and we will finish up. So there's tritone substitution and there's Lydian chords. Now this concept of subdominant minor, which I know you've probably done some things on, is a really, really important one in harmony. And it's quite a simple idea, really. Again, if I give you just sort of a harmonic idea, here's my C major tonic chord, and here's chord 4, which can be very easily turned into F minor. The key bit being that A flat, which is going to descend to G. So once again, in a different voicing. We're all quite used to that sound. It comes up a heck of a lot. So F minor. Why do we do it? Well, we can go F to C, which we'd call a plagal cadence or an amen. But bringing the A down to the A flat and therefore to F minor, and because the G is such an important note of C, it's the fifth and the dominant, that fall is such an important part that it makes that more compelling. So those are all subdominant minor moves. Now, the other use is because when I take particularly F major 7 and I flatten the third, it gets me into F melodic minor as a scale. And as we all know with the melodic minor modes, there's 6 other chords which are really consonant. The melodic minor is really useful because it has no avoid notes. So not only can I think of this as F melodic, I can also think about it as D half diminished, B flat, 13 sharp 11. Any of the other modes of F melodic are really useful for this, and they do exactly the same thing, usually resolving to chord 1. So I'll play that once more. That's F to F minor. I'll play F major 7 with the A flat. Now that can just as easily be another mode of F melodic, but how about the 6th mode, which is D half diminished? So we've got here's D half diminished. So that becomes 2 half diminished to 1. On top of that, it could be, I'll go for the last one, well, the second last one, which is B flat 13 sharp 11, which is the flat 7 one. And that, of course, gives us our back door F minor to B flat 7 to C major. What else have we got there? We've got the second mode, which is the sus flat 9. So that's a great sound as well. So I'm playing G sus flat 9 there. So they're all really doing the same thing. We've got this resolution of the A flat. Often they'll resolve to the C chord, but not always. So these are all modes. Sixth mode, second mode of F melodic, sixth mode, of course, which is the B flat. Sorry, fourth mode. And, the only one I didn't do there is the seventh mode, which would be G altered. Now that doesn't want to resolve nicely to C, but it resolves nicely to something which is closely related to C, which is A minor, which is another chord on the in the pole. So that's E altered, which is the seventh mode of F melodic. A minor. So they're all the same chords with different roots, all from the F melodic minor. So it's a very simple concept, subdominant minor. It comes up all the time because it's a compelling movement. When we start to do some harmony, what we will do is we will look at some different pairs of things that we can use in there. But a couple of the pairs that we could use, and I think what we've done is we can go from F minor major 7, or just even F minor 7 to B flat 7. That's our backdoor progression. And then we could go D half diminished to G sus flat 9. So we have pairs that kind of do the 2-5 thing in subdominant minor. Did you do much on subdominant minor last year?
And all of it.
Cool. Oh, we experts. Any other thoughts about it? What else did you sort of come up on it with it? Any other chords?
There was an interesting one that Cam didn't really like, which was the A flat, like, dominant.
Oh, the A flat dominant with the A flat Lydian augmented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said that there was both. You could have the A flat, which is a tritone sub, and also a secondary, so it's a dominant chord. But he didn't really like it.
Yeah, what we're going to do later on, I think this is what you're alluding to, is that we're going to expand the subdominant minor group out to any chord that's got an A flat on it, and we'll do that when we go through our reharm stuff. So I think it sounds like he's bumping the G flat and he's expanding that out a little bit. But but that's pretty much it. A lot of these things, I sort of feel like I'm scooting over these last two a little bit, but they're going to become very much clearer as we get into harmonic, writing some harmony. Okay, so just because we're nearly there, and I think we've got time, let's lastly do the seventh thing, and this is the last thing which I think really happens in the major key, is flat 3 diminished. So why is this important? Well, we have to distinguish it from the other diminished chords because it's just different and it doesn't behave in the same way as the other diminished chords. So I'm in the key of C again, and here it is here, and I'm just going to write a little bit of harmony to get us here. So this E flat diminished in the key of C, well, and I'll just actually let me play that bit of harmony for you. So this is what this is going to sound like. Now if I finished off, I go G7 to C. It's quite an old-fashioned sort of sound, but it's still a really important one. You probably recognise that sound, probably played it heaps and heaps and heaps of times. So what is unusual about it? Well, if we take the key of C and took E flat diminished, well, let me do the same thing. You got key is C, and you go E flat diminished. Where does it want to go? Do the same thing. If we base it on the other thing we just discussed, yeah?
Ah, so if you base it on the other thing.
Yeah, on the other idea.
Yeah, no, never mind. I have to think about it.
Well, let me do this. That's what it is enharmonically. So which minor secondary dominant is that attached to in the key of C? Range of dominant.
Oh, it's B, the,
B7,
yeah. So it's,
which would mean it would
Going
wants to
to E.
resolve to E minor. So this wants to go to E minor. Well, it's doing the opposite. It's coming to D minor. It's actually coming from E minor. So it doesn't fit into this. I mean, it can. I could do this backwards, and it would work if I go D minor, and which is 1, sharp 1 diminished 2, sharp 2 diminished 3, and that's following exactly what we just learned, that it's part of a minor secondary dominant and it's resolving it. But this one obviously works. You can hear that's part of the harmonic thing. Why does it work?
I guess when you're between, oh, sorry.
No, you go. No, you
I
go.
guess when you're between two minor chords, it can go either way, because the semitone could resolve up or it could resolve down the semitones of E flat and G flat, right?
Right. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just a harmonic opportunity, really. This just happens to become something that happens a lot in harmony. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but it just happens. It's a phenomenon, and there's no real harmonic reason for it. This isn't part of a dominant chord, and it doesn't happen for that reason. The best kind of reason that I can come up with, and I've struggled and thought about this a lot, is that this is part of D7, and somehow D7 might preempt G minor, but it's not a very good reason.
Well, if this was the same thing going from A minor down to G major, it wouldn't resolve as well, because the A flat already has.
You've lost me.
I've lost myself. No, it's just like, I don't know, I just looked at it and I thought, oh, it's because it's between two minor chords, and that's the only place in the key where you have two minor chords, like, right next to each other. I don't know if that's relevant, but anyway.
We'll pick this up next week anyway. But suffice to say, all the other notes in this, apart from these two notes here, are all from C major. So it's another feature of it when it appears, and this is all from the key of C. So I can play G up to D, and that's kind of, it's used particularly in 20s and 30s music. I'm trying to think. There it is there, and these are two melodic notes in body and soul. So it only picks these two notes out that take it away from the diatonic thing. So what scale is it going to be if these are the only two accidental notes? Well, I'll show you, because we're all too long in the tooth to work it out. So we've got the E flat, which is there, and I'll call this an F sharp. We've got a minor third interval there. And then, as I mentioned, all these, I'll go right up there. These are all from the key of C. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes in a row. So we've only allowed for these 2 notes to sort of make the diminished chord. So that's what are we going to call that? Can't really call it anything from here. Well, you call it D mixolydian flat 9, I suppose. Can you call it anything else? What about from here? G harmonic major, in fact. So that's G harmonic major. Ba 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 boo dee dee. Strange scale. Ba da dee 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 dee. G harmonic major, or we sometimes call it Doris. Have you heard of Doris? Okay, so it's like Boris except it's got a major third. So look, we'll learn this, and it's a strange one, but it's included in there because it does happen. But it's a slightly unusual one. It's a diminished chord that works in a different way to the other ones. Okay, so we've got through everything. I know there's a lot there, but just to finish up today, the point of this is I reckon these 7 things constitute just about everything that can happen in a major key. There will be some other things, but these are the main 7 things that happen in a major key without changing key. And obviously there's a lot. There's a lot of things in there. Trio substitutes, diminished chords, subdominant minor, Lydian chords. And what we're going to do is we're going to write some harmony in this. And we're going to, first of all, we're going to analyse some music and jazz tunes and other tunes that we can look at and go, sure, that happens. And so what we've got to do now is we've got to believe that these are what happened all the time. But my proposition to you is these are the only things that happen. This is the major key ecosystem. We kind of got right through it. The 7 possibilities in a major key. And once we've written in it and played with it a little bit and looked at the harmonic, how we can build some harmony out of it, then we're going to move on to minor key and look at that, because that's a different, slightly different thing, but it's got lots of similarities. So we got there. Well done. How are the brains going? It's tough, isn't it? Some quite hard things. But anyway, you're doing really well. Thank you for letting me ask you questions and challenge. I know you're all onto it. And if you're not, it's just there'll be little things, and you can go back over the video. I'll put this back up on YouTube. And try and keep up and try and keep the things coming. And then if you've got a question next week, just come and ask me and say, or even today, so I just didn't get that, and then maybe I can clarify. But also you'll know each other, so hit up anybody else that think might know, and think knows it, and see how you get on. Cool, have a good week. I shall see you next week.